I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Hazel, and for the past 3 weeks, my Aunt Lucy has been staying at our apartment. After a messy divorce, she needed a place to crash while she got her life back on track. Marcos, my boyfriend of 4 years, and I didn't hesitate to offer her our guest room. Lucy's always been different from my other aunts. Younger, bolder, with that kind of beauty that doesn't fade with age. At 42, she carries an elegance that turns heads wherever she goes. I noticed how Marcos watched her from day one, but it didn't bother me. After all, looking is natural, right? Everything changed that Thursday night. The 3 of us were watching a movie in the living room when Lucy went to bed, giving Marcos a look that, even in the dim light, I could tell carried a message. Half an hour later, when we were alone, Marcos surprised me. "Hazel, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low and hesitant. "Lucy made me an offer earlier today, when you went to the store." My heart sped up. "What kind of offer?" "She suggested that I could visit her tonight." The silence between us seemed to vibrate. Strangely, I didn't feel anger. It was something different, a mix of curiosity and an unexpected excitement that confused me. "And you want to go?" I asked, surprised by the calmness in my own voice. Marcos hesitated, his eyes studying my face. "Only if you're completely okay with it." In that moment, something inside me shifted. The idea of Marcos with Lucy created images that, to my surprise, didn't repel me. "I'm good with it," I heard myself say, as if someone else was talking. He kissed me deeply before standing up. "Are you sure?" "I am," I replied, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and excitement. "Go." I watched Marcos walk down the hall and gently knock on Lucy's bedroom door. She opened it, wearing only a silk nightgown that left little to the imagination. Her eyes met mine for a moment, before the door closed behind them. I went back to our room, trying to focus on a book, but it was impossible. Soon the first sounds started to travel through the thin walls of the apartment. Sighs, low laughs, the rhythmic creaking of the bed. Each sound was like a needle under my skin. I put the pillow over my head, but it didn't help. My body was reacting in a contradictory way, a mix of corrosive jealousy and an excitement that embarrassed me. I tried to distract myself with my phone, with music, but the sounds only got louder. That's when I heard Lucy moan Marcos's name, and something snapped inside me. I couldn't just lie there, motionless, while my boyfriend and my aunt. I jumped out of bed in a flash, my heart pounding against my ribs. I walked down the dark hallway, my bare feet silent against the cold floor. I stopped in front of the guest room door, my hand trembling as I touched the doorknob. The sounds were clear now, unmistakable. Part of me was telling me to turn back, to respect the agreement I'd made myself. But another part, stronger and more primal, was urging me to open that door. I took a deep breath and twisted the knob. If you want to find out what happens next in this forbidden love triangle between Hazel, Marcos, and her seductive Aunt Lucy, there's only one thing to do. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell. But at the last second, I hesitated. I couldn't bring myself to open the door. I went back to our room, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I needed to understand how we'd gotten to this point. It all started 3 weeks ago, when Lucy called crying. Her divorce had been finalized, and she needed a place to stay temporarily. Her ex-husband, Richard, had gotten the house while she looked for a new apartment. Of course, I offered her our guest room without thinking twice. She'd always been my favorite aunt, the one who gave me advice about boys in high school and lent me her clothes when I wanted to impress someone. Lucy arrived on a Sunday afternoon, with only 2 large suitcases. Marcos helped her carry everything to the guest room while I made tea. I immediately noticed how different she looked, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, but still maintaining that natural elegance that had always defined her. "I don't know how to thank you, honey," she said, holding my hand across the kitchen table. "I promise I won't stay long." "Stay as long as you need," I replied sincerely. For the first few days, Lucy barely left the room. She worked remotely as a financial consultant and only came out for meals. She seemed down, distant. Marcos and I tried to cheer her up, inviting her to watch movies or have dinner with us. How long has it been since your last relationship? I asked one night, while we were doing the dishes together. Lucy sighed, running her fingers through her brown hair. Since Richard and I started the divorce papers, 8 months ago. I can't even think about being with someone else. I felt sorry for her. Lucy had always been so full of life, so intense. Seeing her like this, so drained, hurt me. But something changed last week. It was like a switch had been flipped. Lucy started getting more dressed up, started wearing makeup again. Her clothes, which had been comfortable and casual, gave way to more form-fitting, more revealing pieces. I noticed how Marcos watched her when she walked into the room wearing that tight black dress, or when she leaned over to grab something from the fridge wearing short shorts. On Tuesday, I was running late for work and rushed out, leaving Marcos and Lucy having coffee together. When I got back that night, I sensed a different energy in the air. Lucy was smiling more, and Marcos seemed strangely quiet. It was on Wednesday that everything became clear. I was making dinner when Lucy walked into the kitchen wearing just a long t-shirt and panties, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Sorry about the outfit," she said, grabbing a glass of water. "I'm so comfortable here that I sometimes forget I'm not alone." Marcos walked into the kitchen at that moment, and I saw his eyes scan Lucy's legs before he looked away, embarrassed. "Don't worry about me," Lucy said to him with a smile. "We're practically family, aren't we?" Later, when we were alone in the kitchen, Marcos had gone to take a shower. Lucy came over to me while I was chopping vegetables. "Your boyfriend is very attractive," she commented casually. "You're lucky." I felt a strange chill. "Yes, I am." Lucy took a sip of wine, watching me over the rim of her glass. "It must be interesting living with you guys. Are the walls thin?" I blushed instantly. "Lucy." She laughed, that musical laugh she'd always had. "Sorry, honey. The divorce has left me hungry, let's just say." She moved closer, lowering her voice. "You know, if Marcos gets bored any night, he's welcome to visit me. I wouldn't mind." I froze, the knife suspended over the carrot. "What?" "It's just a suggestion," she said, shrugging. "You guys are young, modern. I thought maybe you'd be open to experiences." Before I could respond, she left the kitchen, leaving behind only her expensive perfume and those words that seemed to hang in the air like smoke. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lucy's insinuations echoed in my mind. The most disturbing thing wasn't the suggestion itself, but how my body reacted to it, a mix of outrage and curiosity that confused me deeply. The next day, I couldn't look Marcos in the eye. Had Lucy made the same kind of suggestion to him? And if she had, how had he reacted? The doubt ate away at me like acid. It was that night, during the movie, that everything culminated. When Marcos told me about Lucy's invitation, I realized she'd been more direct with him than I'd imagined. And now, as the sounds of their encounter came through the walls, I understood that I had opened a door I might not know how to close. Is Hazel putting her relationship at risk by allowing this encounter? Or is she just participating in a new dynamic with the consent of everyone involved? We want to hear your thoughts. Leave them in the comments below. After that conversation in the kitchen with Lucy, I spent the entire next day with those words pounding in my head. If Marcos gets bored any night, he's welcome to visit me. How could my own aunt suggest something like that? And why, despite the initial outrage, couldn't I stop thinking about it? When Marcos got home from work that Thursday, I noticed something was different. He seemed distant, thoughtful, avoiding my eyes as he put away his keys and phone. I made dinner in silence, and Lucy, strangely, said she'd eat later. "Everything okay?" I asked Marcos while we ate. He hesitated, picking at his food without really eating. "Yeah, just tired." But I knew him too well. "Is there something you want to tell me?" Marcos finally looked up, and I saw a mix of guilt and confusion on his face. "Lucy said something to me this morning, after you left." My heart sped up. "What did she say?" He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. "She implied that, well, that she'd be available if I wanted to visit her." Even though I already suspected it, hearing the confirmation made my stomach clench. "And what did you say?" Nothing. I was speechless and left for work. He put down his fork. Hazel, I would never do something like that without talking to you. You know that, right? I nodded, feeling a strange calm wash over me. I know. We finished dinner and went to the living room. Lucy still hadn't appeared, and I suspected she was giving us space on purpose. We sat on the couch, and Marcos turned on the TV, but neither of us was paying attention to the show. Did she say the same thing to you? He asked suddenly. Yes, I confessed. Last night, in the kitchen. Marcos turned off the TV and turned to me. Hazel, I need to be honest with you. I find your aunt attractive. She's beautiful, intelligent, and she has that confidence that comes with age. But I would never, ever do anything that could hurt you. His honesty disarmed me. Instead of jealousy, I felt a wave of heat spread through my body. What if? What if I didn't mind? He looked at me as if he were trying to decipher a complex code. What do you mean? I didn't even know for sure myself. The words came out before I could filter them. I'm saying that maybe I'm not completely against the idea. The silence between us became charged with possibilities. Marcos took my hands in his. Hazel, are you serious? Because if you're just saying that to please me. It's not that, I interrupted, surprised by my own certainty. It's something I've never considered before, but since Lucy suggested it, I can't stop thinking about it. It's confusing, I know. And you wouldn't be jealous? Probably, yeah, I admitted. But there's something about the idea that intrigues me. I felt my face flush. It's like it's a shared secret between us. Something forbidden that, somehow, connects us more. Marcos studied me for a long moment. Are you sure about this? Because once we cross that line, I'm not sure about anything, I confessed. I just know that I want to explore this feeling. And I'd rather we do it together, with honesty, than let it become a secret temptation. He nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. And what would that look like? Do you want to participate? The question hung between us, loaded with implications. No, I replied after a moment. At least not now. I want you to go to her. Alone. And then? Then we talk. We see how we feel. At that moment, we heard the sound of Lucy's bedroom door opening. She appeared in the hallway, wearing a red silk robe, her hair loose around her face. I'm going to watch a movie. Anyone want to join me? She asked, her gaze moving from me to Marcos. Sure, I replied, feeling my heart race. Why not? The three of us sat down on the couch, Lucy in the middle. I put on some random thriller, but no one was really paying attention. The tension in the air was almost palpable. At one point, Lucy got up to get water, and when she came back, she sat slightly closer to Marcos. I saw when her fingers accidentally brushed against his in the popcorn bowl. When the movie ended, Lucy stretched like a satisfied cat. Well, I'm going to hit the hay. The night is interesting. She gave us a meaningful look before retreating to her room. As soon as we were alone, Marcos turned to me. So, go, I said, surprising both of us with a firmness in my voice. If that's what you want. And you? I want you to go, I confirmed, feeling a dizzying mix of fear and excitement. But I want you to come back to me afterward. He kissed me deeply, his hands holding my face as if it were something precious. I'll always come back to you. I watched as he walked down the hall and gently knocked on Lucy's door. When she opened it, wearing only that silk nightgown, her eyes met mine for a brief moment. There was something in that look, triumph, defiance, or maybe gratitude, that made my stomach clench. The door closed, and I went back to our room, trying to process what I had just allowed. What did it say about me? About us? I lay in bed, my heart pounding against my ribs, waiting for the sounds that I knew would soon come. Lying in our bed, alone, I tried to focus on the book I had started weeks ago. The words danced before my eyes without making sense. My mind was just a few feet away, in the guest room, where Marcos and Lucy were together. The initial silence was almost worse than any sound. The anticipation consumed me, each second dragging on like hours. What were they doing? Talking? Had they already started? Maybe Lucy had lost her nerve. Maybe Marcos had backed out. Then I heard it. A low, feminine laugh. Marcos's deep voice, although I couldn't make out the words. The soft creaking of the bed. My body reacted instantly, a wave of heat spreading from my chest to my belly. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the sounds, but that only made them clearer, as if my brain were compensating for the lack of vision by amplifying my hearing. A soft moan came through the wall. Lucy. Unmistakably Lucy. I imagined Marcos's hands moving over her body, touching her the way he touched me. Would it be different with her? More intense? More hesitant? Another moan, deeper this time. Marcos responding to her pleasure. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. A toxic mixture of jealousy and excitement coursed through my veins. I dropped the book and turned over in bed, restless. I tried to cover my ears with the pillow, but it was useless. The sounds were getting more intense, more rhythmic. The creaking of the bed now had a defined pattern, gradually accelerating. I heard Lucy call Marcos's name, her voice choked with pleasure. My body was reacting on its own, betraying any hint of outrage I might have felt. I slid my hand under my pajamas, trying to relieve the tension that was building inside me. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on the sensations, but my mind kept drifting back to the room next door. What would it be like to see them together? The image formed vividly in my mind. Marcos on top of Lucy, their bodies moving in sync. Her brown hair spread out on the pillow, her red nails digging into his back. I tried to satisfy myself, synchronizing my movements with the sounds coming from the other room, but something was missing. The frustration grew along with the desire. It was like being trapped outside a party, hearing the music and the laughter, but unable to participate. Oh my God, yes. Lucy's voice cut through the wall, without any inhibition now. I stopped what I was doing, a sudden wave of jealousy washing over me. It wasn't just desire I was feeling. It was possessiveness. Marcos was mine. And yet, I had given him away to another woman. My own aunt. What did that say about me? What kind of person allows something like this and then gets turned on by the situation? The sounds reached a crescendo. Lucy was no longer holding back, her moans echoing through the apartment. I heard Marcos grunt that familiar sound he made in moments of intense pleasure. And then, silence. I lay still, my heart still racing, my body still tense and unsatisfied. The frustration consumed me, not just physical, but emotional. I had initiated something I didn't know how to process. Minutes passed. I heard low laughter, murmurs. Were they talking about me? Comparing me to Lucy? The idea gnawed at me from the inside. A few more minutes and I heard the sound of running water. Someone was using the hallway bathroom. Then, footsteps returning to the guest room. No sign of Marcos coming back to our bed. The feeling of abandonment hit me like a punch. He had promised to come back to me. Was he so caught up with Lucy that he had forgotten? Or worse, did he prefer to stay with her? I looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. How much longer would I wait? How much longer could I endure this self-imposed torture? The sounds started again. Softer now, slower, but unmistakable. They were having a second round. Something inside me snapped. The curiosity, the frustration, the jealousy. It all merged into a sudden and unshakable determination. I couldn't lie there any longer, alone with my torturous thoughts, while they shared something that I myself had allowed but from which I felt excluded. I got out of bed, my heart pounding against my ribs. I put on the silk robe over my nightgown, my hands trembling slightly. I didn't know exactly what I would do, what I would say. I only knew that I needed to see it with my own eyes. I walked down the dark hallway, my bare feet silent against the cold floor. The sounds were getting clearer with each step. Lucy's rapid breathing, Marcos's low grunts, the soft creaking of the bed. I stopped in front of the guest room door, my hand suspended in the air. Part of me screamed to turn back, to respect the boundaries that I myself had set. But another part, more primitive and more powerful, urged me to move forward. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. The sounds stopped abruptly. There was a moment of absolute silence, as if time itself had frozen. "Who is it?" Lucy's voice, feigning ignorance. "It's me," I replied, my voice firmer than I expected. "Can I come in?" "What do you think of Hazel's decision? She allowed her boyfriend Marcos to go to bed with her own Aunt Lucy, and now she's knocking on their bedroom door. Is this a healthy exploration of fantasies or a one-way ticket to disaster?" There was a moment of tense silence before Lucy responded. "Of course, honey." I turned the doorknob, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The door opened, revealing a scene that would forever be etched in my memory. The light from the bedside lamp cast a golden glow on the two intertwined bodies in the bed. Lucy was propped up against the pillows, the sheet covering only part of her body. Marcos was beside her, his torso bare, an expression of surprise and something else, guilt? Desire? On his face. "Hazel," he said, sitting up. "I was going to come back to our room. I raised my hand, interrupting him. "You don't have to explain." Lucy watched me with a feline curiosity, without any trace of embarrassment. "Is everything all right, honey? You seem agitated." I was. My whole body was vibrating with an energy I barely recognized. I took a step into the room and closed the door behind me. "I couldn't stay alone," I confessed, my voice almost a whisper. "Listening to you." Marcos reached out his hand to me. "Do you want me to come back with you?" I looked at his outstretched hand, then at Lucy, who studied me intently. "No," I replied, surprising everyone, including myself. "I want to stay here. With you." The air in the room seemed to thicken, charged with possibilities. Lucy shifted in the bed, making space between her and Marcos. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. I nodded, unable to verbalize the turmoil of emotions consuming me. With trembling fingers, I untied the robe and let it fall to the floor. I stood there, wearing only my thin nightgown, feeling the weight of their gazes on me. Marcos seemed mesmerized, his eyes dark with desire. "Hazel, you don't have to do this if you don't want to." "I want to," I affirmed, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. "I need to." I approached the bed, each step dissolving a little more of my inhibitions. Lucy reached out her hand to me, and after a moment of hesitation, I took it. Her skin was warm, her delicate fingers wrapping around mine with an unexpected gentleness. "Come," she said, pulling me gently. I sat on the edge of the bed, my body rigid with nervousness. Marcos came up behind me, his familiar hands on my shoulders, massaging away the accumulated tension. "Relax," he whispered in my ear. "We're in this together." Lucy knelt in front of me, her body nude without any shame. She was beautiful in a way that only maturity provides. Confident, comfortable in her own skin. "May I?" she asked, her fingers playing with the strap of my nightgown. I nodded, unable to speak. With a fluid movement, she slid the garment down my shoulders, exposing my body to their gaze. I felt vulnerable and powerful at the same time. What happened next was like a fever dream. Hands explored my body, sometimes Marcos's, sometimes Lucy's, often impossible to distinguish. Lips roamed my skin, provoking shivers that spread like waves. The scent of expensive perfume and sweat mingled in the air, intoxicating. Lucy guided me with an experience I didn't possess, showing me how to touch, how to feel. Marcos watched, fascinated, before joining us. We were a tangle of limbs and sensations, 3 bodies moving as if they were one. At one point, I found myself between them. Marcos behind me, his strong arms embracing me, while Lucy was in front of me, her lips on mine, her hands exploring places that only Marcos had touched before. "You're incredible," she whispered against my skin. "So beautiful, so brave." Her words ignited something inside me, a confidence I didn't know I possessed. I took the initiative, surprising myself with my boldness. I guided her hands, showed her what I wanted, what I needed. Lucy threw her head back, a moan escaping her lips as Marcos and I touched her simultaneously. Her body arched on the bed, vulnerable and powerful at the same time. I watched, fascinated, as she writhed with pleasure under our combined touch. "Oh my God," she gasped, her eyes closed in ecstasy. "You two. Together." There was something deeply satisfying in seeing her like that. My aunt, always so controlled, now completely surrendered to the pleasure we were providing. Marcos and I exchanged a look of complicity over her body, a silent connection stronger than any words could express. We continued to explore, to discover, to lose ourselves in each other. Time seemed suspended in that room, the hours dissolving into moments of pure sensation. Sometimes we were gentle, almost reverent. Other times, intense and urgent. In a particularly intense moment, Lucy cupped my face in her hands, her eyes locked on mine. "You are extraordinary, Hazel. I always knew there was something special about you." Her words hit me in an unexpected way, awakening emotions that went beyond the physical. There was an intimacy in that moment that transcended the carnal, a connection I never imagined possible. When we finally reached climax, it was like a wave that engulfed us simultaneously. Lucy was the first, her whole body trembling as she called out our names. Marcos and I followed her almost at the same time, our hands intertwined as pleasure consumed us. Afterward, we lay in silence, our sweaty and satisfied bodies forming a perfect puzzle on the narrow bed. Lucy was in the middle, her breathing still uneven, a smile of contentment on her lips. "That was," she began, but stopped, apparently speechless. "Incredible," I completed, surprised by my own calm. Marcos kissed my shoulder, then Lucy's. "You two are incredible." Lying there, between my boyfriend and my aunt, I felt a strange peace. The jealousy, the insecurity, the guilt. Everything had been temporarily silenced, replaced by a feeling of completeness that I had never experienced before. But as I stared at the ceiling, feeling the warmth of their bodies against mine, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered an unsettling question. What would happen when the sun came up? How would we look at each other in the daylight? For now, I pushed those concerns away. There was plenty of time for reality in the morning. At that moment, I just wanted to exist in that space we had created, where the normal rules didn't apply and where I had discovered a part of myself I didn't even know existed. Lucy turned to me, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. "Thank you," she whispered, so softly I almost didn't hear it. "For what?" I asked. Her smile held something enigmatic. "For letting me in." I wasn't sure if she was referring to the room, to our lives, or to something deeper. Maybe all of those options. I returned the smile, feeling that we had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. But before we reveal what happens the next morning, we want to know. Are you feeling the heat of this forbidden story between Hazel, Marcos, and Lucy? Are you curious to find out how this unexpected love triangle is going to affect their relationship when the reality of the next day arrives? If so, don't hesitate. Show your support by hitting that like button right now. I woke up alone in our bed. Marcos had returned during the early morning hours, but he had already left for work. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, processing what had happened. I had allowed my boyfriend to sleep with my aunt. The smell of coffee pulled me out of bed. I put on a robe and walked hesitantly to the kitchen, my stomach twisting with nervousness. Lucy was there, making toast. She was wearing short shorts and a loose t-shirt that hung off her shoulder, revealing the skin that Marcos had touched hours before. "Good morning," I murmured, keeping my eyes fixed on the coffee maker. Lucy turned with a radiant smile. "Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" There was something in her voice, a note of provocation, that made my face flush. I grabbed a mug and poured myself some coffee, avoiding looking at her. "Yes, thank you," I replied dryly. Lucy came closer, leaning against the counter next to me. Her perfume was the same scent that had lingered on Marcos when he came back. "Marcos already left," she commented. "Said he had an important meeting." I nodded, still not looking at her. "He mentioned it yesterday." The silence that followed was almost palpable. I took a sip of the coffee, burning my tongue in my haste. "Hazel," Lucy began, her voice softer. "About last night." "We don't need to talk about it," I interrupted quickly. She chuckled. "Actually, I think we do." especially considering the walls in this apartment are surprisingly thin. I choked on my coffee. Lucy patted me on the back, her hand lingering there longer than necessary. What do you mean? I asked, even though I knew exactly. I heard you last night, honey. In your room. After Marcos came back. My face turned flaming red. After returning, Marcos woke me with caresses. Still aroused by the experience with Lucy, he made love to me with a rare intensity. And I, agitated by the sounds I had heard, responded with equal fervor. Don't be ashamed, Lucy said, touching my arm. It was inspiring, knowing that what happened between Marcos and I ended up benefiting you guys. I finally faced her. There was no malice on her face, just curiosity and a rare vulnerability. Was it weird for you? She asked. Hearing us? I considered lying, but something in the way Lucy looked at me made me opt for honesty. It was disturbing, I admitted. But not in the way I expected. You were turned on. It wasn't a question. I looked away, but my silence was answer enough. There's nothing wrong with that, she continued. Our desires don't always follow societal rules. He's my boyfriend, Lucy. And you're my aunt. And yet you allowed it. Why? Maybe I wanted to see if he would come back to me even after being with you. You were testing his loyalty? Not exactly. It was more like I wanted to see if what we have is strong enough. And maybe I wanted to feel what you felt, I finished in a low voice. Through him. Lucy came closer and touched my face. You could feel it directly, she whispered. It doesn't have to be through him. My heart skipped a beat. I pulled away, confused. Lucy, I don't. Sure, she silenced me. I'm not proposing anything right now. I just want you to know that there are possibilities. The sound of the door opening separated us. Marcos came in, looking surprised to find us together. I forgot my phone, he explained. Is everything okay? Perfectly, Lucy replied. We were just having a girl-to-girl chat. Weren't we, Hazel? I nodded stiffly. Marcos gave me a questioning look before leaving again. Afterward, I sat at the table with Lucy, accepting the toast she offered, aware that something fundamental had changed between us. What happened last night? I began. Was just the beginning, she completed, her eyes locked on mine. If you want it to be. In that moment, I realized that I was on the edge of a precipice. And the scariest part? A part of me was already eager to take that step. And now, we want to hear from you who have followed this intense journey of discovery between Hazel, Marcos, and Lucy. What did you think of this forbidden dynamic that has formed between a niece, her boyfriend, and her aunt? What emotions did this story awaken in you? Did you identify with Hazel's dilemmas, torn between jealousy, curiosity, and desire? Your opinion is very important to us. So, take this moment of reflection and share your thoughts in the comments.